So welcome viewers, pupils and subscribers to this lecture on question 4 for GCSE English language. The good news is that the mark scheme is identical for both paper 1 and 2. The bad news is that it's fiddly and quite difficult, hence this video. If you've been successful today, you will finish this video knowing exactly what you need to do to get a good mark for this question in terms of exam technique. A reminder of the mark scheme, which you can see on screen now. It's split into two, 6 marks available for the frequency and quality of your comparisons, and 12 marks for the quality of your evaluation, your focus on the statement, and your use of supporting quotations. So what do we mean by evaluation? To me, it's about weighing up, partly agreeing with one aspect, partly disagreeing with a different aspect. For this lecture, I've looked again at exemplar OCR responses and OCR candidate star responses written by teachers. Now, look at the statement on top of the screen. In these texts, being on your own is described as a pleasant and worthwhile experience, and some of you may have completed this question. Before reading any response, I'm imagining that a grade 9 response will not just blindly agree, but actually find some parts of the text in which being on your own is a little less pleasant and worthwhile. I'm also anticipating some comparative evaluation. Out of the two texts, in which one is being on your own more pleasant and worthwhile? This approach helps us meet the requirements for both sides of the mark scheme. So let's start reading, and this extract is taken from the second A4 side of the response. In text 1, while Smith explains how pleasant he feels while running, he also explains the idea that running alone isn't all positive and pleasant. I quite like this. The subordinate clause beginning with while allows the candidate to come up with a more sophisticated response. It's also clear that in this section, he's not going to blindly agree with the statement, but challenge it to some extent. He carries on. Smith describes the frost pain suffering that he feels. Good. He has supported his initial topic sentence probing the statement with a short, precise, embedded quotation. Now for the most important bit, the evaluation. The use of the verb suffering exaggerates his pain as it is almost torture-like. This presents the idea that even though being alone with running is worthwhile, as he feels extremely good at the end, it isn't all pleasant as he also feels pain. I'm not totally convinced that the verb suffering exaggerates his pain, and this point almost seems a little AO2-y, i.e. more interested in exploring language rather than evaluating. However, the candidate returns to sharply focus on the statement, and I like the continued challenging stroke partially disagreeing. Let's carry on. On the other hand, in text 2, William is presented as wholeheartedly enjoying being alone. So this is an implicit contrast. In text 1, some of the pain experienced by Smith detracts from his enjoyment of being alone. But here in text 2, William wholeheartedly enjoys being alone. Garner does this by ending the extract with the phrase, "No one could shift him from it." Always back up your points with a carefully chosen quotation. This seems a particularly good one. The use of the inclusive word "no one" suggests that nothing could stop him from doing his work where he is alone, not even his loving wife. This highlights the idea that being alone while he works must be the best thing in his life, as nothing stops him from it. And once again, we have to return to focus sharply on the question and the evaluation of the points and quotation. This is what the examiner wrote about the candidate's response as a whole. Press pause if you would like to read this now. The video will resume in 5 seconds' time. Let's unpick another paragraph, this time focusing on whether the texts are powerful because they show the importance of having freedom and strong beliefs. I suspect many of you would have read these passages. Do you remember the one from Frederick Douglass about being a slave and one from Barack Obama about Nelson Mandela? We join the response from the third paragraph. This has been written by a teacher and shared by OCR as an exemplar. I also agree that the texts are powerful because they are inspiring and they show the importance of having leaders that we can look up to and who can guide humans towards freedom. Decent topic sentence, and notice how it is a little more detailed. Rather than just writing about the statement in full, the response takes the word freedom and clarifies his perspective on the text. They show the importance of having leaders we can look up to and who can guide humans towards freedom. This time, before the quotation, there is a development of the initial topic sentence. Barack Obama clearly admires Mandela and he is humble when he talks of Mandela. Remember that this paragraph structure is a guide. Once you've mastered it, you can occasionally deviate when you want to explain something in further detail or make a more sophisticated point. The response continues. It is inspiring that the President of America, who's been classed as an incredible world leader, talks about something he can aspire to. You can see once again that the quotations don't need to be long, and indeed they shouldn't be, given that quotations are, by definition, simply copying. You mostly get your marks for what you say about the quotation. He continues. He is already a world leader, but Mandela clearly showed him a way to behave that he admires. Some clear evaluation here. The response is weighing up the article and concluding that text 2 is powerful because it shows Mandela clearly demonstrating to Obama a way to behave that is admirable. In this response, evaluation of text is positioned in two different paragraphs. This makes it slightly easier to mark, but arguably makes the comparisons look less interwoven. In the same way, Douglas himself shows awareness of the significance of having heroes in the fight for freedom. The phrase "in the same way" refers back to the evaluation in the other paragraph and gains comparison marks. It continues. He speaks of the deep pride that he felt after confronting Covey and speaks of his bold defiance. Short, carefully chosen quotations to back up the initial points. It continues. For both Mandela and Douglas to defy white oppression in the way they did appears to be the actions of selfless heroes, and the force of will which both men appear to have demonstrated, with Douglas ending in a glorious resurrection, is on a level with the forgiveness that Mandela demonstrated. This is a very good comparative evaluation, which suggests that both texts equally show the importance of having freedom and strong personal beliefs. Note that there is another quotation here, a satellite quotation, which allows the evaluation to be even more precise and specific. So here's the examiner comment. Interestingly, I would draw your attention to the fact that it says that texts are interwoven, but comparison does tend towards switching from one text to another. And this is why I say with my pupils that there's something to be said for a mid-paragraph structure, such as whereas text 1 does this, in a different way text 2. So just emphasizing the importance of interwoven comparisons. Do have a read this through in full and press pause now. So to conclude this whistle-stop lecture on technique for question 4, why don't we have a jolly song?
You need to probe the statement for question 4. Need to weigh it up to get a lovely score. Compare the text frequently. Compare the text frequently and back up your points with an embedded quote. You need to probe the statement for question 4. Need to weigh it up to get a lovely score. Compare the text frequently. Compare the text frequently and back up your points with an embedded quote. You need to probe the statement for question 4. Need to weigh it up to get a lovely score. Compare the text frequently. Compare the text frequently and back up your points with an embedded quote. Your turn. Come on, sing it. Need to Compare the text frequently and back up your points with an embedded quote. One final time. You need to probe the statement for question 4. Need to weigh it up to get a lovely score. Compare the text frequently and back up your points with an embedded quote.